By September 1939, the Junkers Ju-87 Stuka embodied the Luftwaffe's commitment to precision ground attack through near-vertical dive bombing, a doctrine that demanded absolute control of the airspace above the battlefield. The aircraft's inverted gull wings and fixed landing gear, drag-inducing features that limited maximum speed to roughly 383 kilometers per hour, existed solely to stabilize its 60 to 90 degree dive angle, allowing bombardiers to release ordnance below 450 meters with unprecedented accuracy. German factories produced approximately 6,500 Stukas between 1936 and 1944. Its combat method required fighter escort. The Stuka's rear defense consisted of a single, manually aimed 7.92mm MG-15 machine gun, upgraded to an MG-81Z twin mount on later variants, inadequate against modern interceptors. If you're interested in how wars are actually decided by logistics, math, weapons, and doctrine, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more in-depth World War II analysis. Let's continue. This vulnerability stemmed from fundamental engineering choices. The Stuka's 1,200 horsepower Jumo 211 engine generated sufficient power for its automatic dive recovery system, preventing pilots from blacking out during 6G pullouts, but insufficient thrust to outrun pursuit. The thick wing section, optimized for low-speed stability during attack dives, created excessive drag at cruising speeds. German planners assumed these trade-offs acceptable because Bf-109 escorts would suppress enemy fighters first. That assumption collapsed on August 18, 1940. During the Battle of Britain's most intense phase, RAF Fighter Command intercepted Stuka formations over southern England without escort. German fighters had already turned back due to fuel constraints. Spitfires and Hurricanes tore through the exposed formations, exploiting the vast speed advantage modern fighters held over bomb-laden Stukas. 16% of the attacking force fell that single day. Luftwaffe High Command withdrew the type from operations against Britain within days. The Stuka survived operationally only where the Luftwaffe maintained air dominance. Poland, France, the early Eastern Front, making the aircraft less a weapon system than a barometer of German air superiority. Dawn breaks over the Berezina River on June 22, 1941. Mechanics at 4th Ground Attack Aviation Regiment complete pre-flight inspections on 65 IL-2 Sturmoviks. In the single-seat aircraft taxi toward the runway, their AM-38 engines producing 1,680 horsepower to lift 6-ton airframes armed with 220mm SVAK cannons, two 7.62mm SKAS machine guns, and RS-82 rockets. German columns advancing through the Berezina corridor become the target for the first operational sorties of Sergei Ilyushin's armored ground attack design. The 5 to 12mm steel armored tub encasing the IL-2's engine, cockpit, and fuel tanks survives frontal 20mm cannon strikes. The rear fuselage remains unprotected plywood. Messerschmitt Bf-109S exploit this throughout summer 1941, attacking from 6 o'clock where Soviet pilots possess no defensive armament. By mid-July, 4th SHAP records 55 aircraft lost from its original 65. The loss rate stabilizes at 1 IL-2 per 10 sorties. The Soviet Air Force loses over 4,000 aircraft during Barbarossa's first month. A frontline pilot writes to Stalin requesting a rear gunner. The letter reaches Moscow as German advances threaten the capital's aircraft factories. In an operation that defies belief, Factory Number 1 begins disassembly. Machine tools unbolted, assembly jigs dismantled for rail transport east of the Ural Mountains to Kuibyshev. Workers reassemble production lines in open air during winter temperatures reaching minus 30 degrees Celsius. They erected walls and roofs around assembly lines that were already running. Stalin's telegram to plant directors eliminates ambiguity. The Red Army needs IL-2s like air, like bread. The IL-2 M2-seat variant enters production in 1942, adding a rear gunner with a 12.7mm Berezin UBT machine gun. The second gunner adds roughly 170 kilograms but closes the lethal blind spot German pilots exploited. Twin 23mm VY cannons replaced the earlier 20mm Schwack weapons on the IL-2 M3, their armor-piercing rounds penetrating 25mm plate at 500 meters, sufficient for Panzer III engine decks and personnel carriers. Here is where the design philosophy matters. Ilyushin's Bureau confronted an engineering paradox in 1938. Armored aircraft flew too slowly to survive, while fast aircraft died from ground fire. The IL-2 solved this through structural heresy. The 5 to 12mm steel tub formed the primary load-bearing structure, rather than dead weight bolted to a frame. This armored bath enclosed engine, fuel tanks, and pilot, with 55 to 65mm laminated glass shielding the canopy. Behind this fortress, plywood wings and tail surfaces stripped production requirements to available materials. No strategic aluminum alloys, no chromium steel. A plane built to be shot at, survive, land on a dirt strip, get patched with plywood, and fly again before lunch. The PTAB 2.5 1.5 shaped charge bomblet arrived in spring 1943 and recalibrated anti-armor mathematics. Each 2.5 kilogram submunition punched through 70mm armor, defeating every German tank's top protection. IL-2 bomb bays carried 200 PTABs in cassettes. A single 8-aircraft circle over a Panzer column released 1,600 bomblets. Statistical annihilation for vehicles clustered in road march. The IL-2 went from strafing nuisance to genuine tank killer overnight. Factory number 1 achieves full capacity by mid-1942, with reported peak production rates reaching 1.5 IL-2s per hour from a single plant. By summer 1943, approximately 2,800 Sturmoviks are available as operational reserves. July 5, 1943. Pre-dawn. 84 IL-2. Sturmoviks. Lift from 4 eastern airfields targeting German positions near Kharkov. The Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, is also one of the largest air battles. By 7 o'clock, Soviet fighters and Sturmoviks swarm the battlefield in formations exceeding 30 aircraft. The Ilyusha makes low-altitude strafing runs, protected by 55mm armored glass canopies that deflect machine gun fire. A note on the nickname Schwarzer Tod, Black Death. While widely repeated, some historians suggest this was Soviet propaganda. Better documented Luftwaffe nicknames include Cement Bomber, Concrete Bomber, and Eiserner Gustav, Iron Gustav, both reflecting grudging acknowledgement of the aircraft's durability. On July 7th, IL-2S attacked the 9th Panzer Division, carrying PTABs for the first time in combat. Soviet pilots reported 70 tanks destroyed in 20 minutes, almost certainly exaggerated, as German records don't reflect catastrophic losses of that magnitude. But the effect was real. Armor dispersed, advance rates slowed, Luftwaffe resources diverted to anti-Sturmovik defense. The IL-2s circle in defensive formations of 8 to 12 aircraft. The Todeskreis, circle of death, peeling off one attacker at a time. By July 9th, German Stuka sorties collapsed from opening day totals. The Ju-87D cannot survive without air cover. IL-2 loss rates improved from 1 per 10 missions to 1 per 26. Not from technical improvements, but from Luftwaffe disintegration and improved Soviet fighter escort. By mid-1943, over 3,000 Sturmoviks operate simultaneously. July 12th, Hitler orders withdrawal from Kursk. The cement bomber has won through arithmetic. At Stalingrad, Sturmoviks had already demonstrated what massed ground attack could do, destroying 72 German aircraft on the ground during the airlift crisis, strangling the 6th Army's supply line. Operation Bagration, June 1944. The destruction of Army Group Center, the single greatest defeat in German military history. 300,000 German casualties. The IL-2 is everywhere. Supply lines, rail junctions, retreating columns trapped on roads turned to mud. By this point, the Soviets can concentrate Sturmoviks in waves the Luftwaffe simply cannot answer. The German response arrived too late and too few. The Henschel HS-129 ground attack aircraft and the Ju-87G Kanonenvogel with 37mm cannons. At Kursk, only a handful of production Ju-87Gs had been committed. The Germans were improvising. The Soviets were industrializing. At Silo Heights in April 1945, massed Sturmoviks pound the last German defensive line east of Berlin. The war ends as it was decided, with IL-2s overhead. Here is the final arithmetic. Soviet factories delivered 36,183 IL-2s, Sturmoviks between 1941 and 1945, plus 6,000 IL-10s successors. Over 42,000 ground attack aircraft from a single design lineage. No military aircraft before or since has been produced in those numbers. The ratio: 5.5 Sturmoviks for every Stuka Germany ever produced. At peak, the Luftwaffe never fielded more than 400 Stukas on the Eastern Front at any one time. By mid-1943, over 3,000 Sturmoviks operated simultaneously. Factory number: on one alone built 11,863 IL-2s, nearly double total Stuka production from a single plant. Official Soviet records documented 11,000 combat losses. Western analysts estimated the true figure reached 20,000, a discrepancy reflecting both the chaos of Eastern Front record-keeping and Soviet undercount tendencies. The hero of the Soviet Union was awarded to IL-2 pilots after 10 combat missions. Every other Soviet airman needed 100. The disparity reflected calculated survival probabilities. Reaching mission 11 was considered genuinely heroic. Rear gunners died at 4 times the pilot fatality rate, exposed in manually aimed positions with no armor protection. A Sturmovik pilot could expect to outlive 6 gunners. The Sturmovik was never the best ground attack aircraft of the war. It was slow, it was clumsy, and its wooden tail section could be, and routinely was, shot to pieces. But here is the fact the German high command never solved. Half of them came back. They landed on dirt strips. They were patched with plywood. They flew again the next morning, and behind them, the factories kept running. The type remained operational into the 1950s. Its successor, the IL-10, flew combat during the Korean War, carrying the Sturmovik's design lineage into the jet age. But the Sturmovik's true legacy isn't a museum piece or a service record. It's a question that still haunts military planners. Germany built the most precise ground attack aircraft of the war. The Soviet Union built enough to darken the sky. Precision lost. Adequacy multiplied by 36,000. 1. What if your enemy doesn't need the best weapon? What if they just need enough? If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more World War II deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.